back with new audio of former President Donald Trump that could have a major impact on his D.C. election trial. Trump, speaking to journalist Jonathan Karl in March of 2021, talked about how the Secret Service stopped him from going to the Capitol on January 6th.
But if you look at the real size of that crowd, it was never reported correctly. There were, it's the biggest crowd I've ever spoken in front of by far.
Really?
By far. That went down to the Washington, that went back to the Washington Monument.
You told them you were going to go up to the Capitol. Were you just...
I was going to, and the Secret Service said, you can't. And then by the time I would have, and then when I got back, I wanted to go back. I was thinking about going back during the problem to stop the problem, doing it myself. Secret Service didn't like that idea too much.
So what?
I could have done that, and you know what? I would have been very well received. Don't forget, the people that went to Washington that day, in my opinion, they went because they thought the election was rigged. That's why they went.
Let's bring in NBC News Justice reporter Ryan Riley. He is also the author of the book Sedition Hunters, How January 6th Broke the Justice System. Also joining us now, MSNBC legal analyst Lisa Rubin. Ryan, he says he was thinking about going to the Capitol on January 6th to stop the problem. How does that compare to other testimony we've heard about the White House that day?
Well, it matches up with what Cassidy Hutchinson was saying, which was that she heard from members of the Secret Service that Donald Trump had actually grabbed the driver and wanted to go down to the Capitol. So that really lines up with this notion that he really wanted to be down there. I think the audio is also really revelatory because it shows that Donald Trump knew the power that he had over that mob, and that delay between when he knew this violent attack had been undertaken and when he actually finally got an edited message out on his platform on social media, in which, of course, he also praised the crowd and praised their intelligence, for example. That is a huge gap that is really tougher for him to explain. So, you know, that it really goes to this idea that he did know that he could have stopped this had he just spoken up sooner, or in his mind, had he actually headed down to the Capitol that day.
Okay, Ryan, thanks for that. So, Lisa, the indictment talks about how Trump exploited the violence and chaos at the Capitol. Now we have him saying that he knew that there was a problem there. How does this new audio fit into potentially talking about his mindset? How would prosecutors use this?
Well, first of all, the tape, as far as I know, is not evidence in the case yet, nor has it been brought to any court's attention. So let's stay tuned to see how Special Counsel Jack Smith and his team actually use this audio tape. However, to Ryan's point, this not only corroborates Cassidy Hutchinson, but if you listen to what he says at the end of that, when he says, when I got back to the White House, I wanted to go back, we know, thanks to timelines and thanks to evidence that the January 6th committee brought out, that at 1:24 that afternoon, when he arrived back at the White House, he was informed that the Capitol had been breached. For him to say now that he wanted to go back, and yet there's that 187 minutes of inaction, is somewhat at odds with itself. And if Donald Trump were to take the stand in this case, I would expect prosecutors to use that tape to impeach the credibility of his testimony.
How could the prosecutors not have this tape already?
Well, that's an interesting question because, you know, certainly they might have known that Jonathan Karl has been working on this book. To the extent that this tape is in discovery and in their possession, it's certainly not something that's surfaced in briefs so far. So let's stay tuned to see to what extent prosecutors surface this in the ongoing briefing. Donald Trump, as you know, has moved to strike a number of allegations about January 6th from that ongoing federal election interference case. That motion is still pending.
Okay, another motion and another move by Donald Trump in a different case now. His New York civil fraud case, been covering for a while. There was a gag order issued. Yep. Well, now that gag order has been temporarily lifted or paused. As an appeals court is taking a look at all of this. So when would we expect a decision? Why did they decide to pause it anyway?
So all we know is that one judge of the New York Appeals Court, it's called the First Department, said that given the constitutional and statutory issues, that a stay was appropriate. The briefing here is expedited. There will be a hearing or a resolution by November 27th. But as you note, that gives Donald Trump and his lawyers, there are two different gag orders here, one on Trump, one on his legal team. Both are paused until the 27th. That gives them 10 more days to attack Judge Arthur Engoron, who was never subject of the gag order, but more importantly, his principal law law clerk, who really was the primary focus of their ire and the reason Judge Engoron entered those gag orders in the first place.
And Trump already came out as soon as this gag order was paused. He came out and immediately went on the attack against the judge, against his law clerk. So what happens if at the end of the day this gag order is reinstated? He's already been fined $15,000. Could he face additional penalties for this time?
Not for this time, because there's an interim stay. So he can't be punished for anything that happens during the period of time that the gag order is stayed. However, if it is reinstated by the First Department, that's the appellate court that has jurisdiction here, and he does it again, you can expect that the penalties will be harsher than the $15,000 that he's been fined so far in 2 increments. $5,000 the first time, $10,000 the second time, with a warning from Judge Engoron. I will consider penalties up to and including jail for a further violation.